Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Dribble, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing wonderful.
The very unique interview that we're gonna conduct tonight. This is only the second of its kind that I ever did. Shout out to Miss Harlem Shakur. She's one of my followers. She also one of my media moderators on the live streams, and I interviewed her in Flint, Michigan. I interviewed her in Flint Town, and she has her own line of spices for diabetics. So uh, I like how that interview went, and I said to myself, if anybody else that's in my chat launches any ventures, I'm gonna be involved. So that's how we ended up here tonight.
Absolutely.
So why don't we take it from the top? How about you introduce yourself and tell everyone where you're from?
Okay, my name is Alicia. I go by Shanice. I have a podcast, Alicia Shanice Reviews. I am from Flint, Michigan, and I just wrote my first novel, A Tale of the Park Hill Crew.
Oh man, hold it up. Flint killing this shit over here, yo. Flint killing this. Um, tell me how all of this came to be. Tell me which one you launched first. You launched the podcast first, right?
Yeah, I launched the podcast first, but actually the book was thought of first. And it was crazy because, I reached out to you behind the scenes, asked you for advice. And I had kind of had to run it by you because I knew you was official. And I knew if I told you, you would be keeping real with me. You was like, no, it's. So I'm like, eventually I wouldn't mind turning it into a scripted podcast. And that's what I plan on doing. So I didn't release the audio version. In January, I'm gonna start reading chapter by chapter every Friday night.
Mm.
And what took me so long, I started writing it in August 2020. But what happened, I overwrote because I got so involved with the characters. I fell in love with the characters. I became a part of the story. And it turned into a trilogy. So I actually wrote enough for 3 books. So that was the long process that we had to break it up. So this is only volume 1. And I'm hoping by the time I release volume 2, I may can bring more people onto the pod where it might be like I can get some guy voices to, over talk the guy characters and, more girls to talk the female characters. So it can become more scripted, have more background noises because it's definitely a urban tale. It's definitely an urban tale.
Now your podcast, I looked. I've seen some of the episodes that you posted, and I see the titles.
Mm-hmm.
You primarily review what films, movies. I think I seen you review Power or BMF or something like that. What
I do
exactly is it that you review?
So I do everything Power Universe, but that's not all. I do documentary recaps. I do whatever my listeners want me to do. Mainly they love when I do the Power recaps. I cover everything Snowfall, but mine is a little different. Not that I'm, saying anything about anybody else's, but everybody else do recaps and theory videos. I try to do it like more of a deep dive. So like when we did the Snowfall, for instance, I went back and I'm like, okay, we're gonna start from the blueprint of it. We're going to recap documentaries of Freeway Rick. We're going to go dig deeper than it. We're going to recap, the Contra hearings. We're going to talk about what was going on with the CIA and the court hearings. So I try to deep dive more into it, just the backstory, but I always been like that. Even before I started a podcast, I always just wanted to know the backstory. You know what I'm saying? Like even I remember back in the day, and that's what got me on the Yo channel is I was always so intrigued, and this was way before YouTube was popping. Me and my friends used to go, when one of my homegirls, we would go print off stuff like when Paid in Full came out. We wanted to know the real story. So we knew about the Alpo and, the Poe story way back in the day just from looking it up online. So I just always been intrigued of what's the backstory, what's the, what happened, what's the real deal behind it. So I talk about the cartels and I talk about we go back to when I want to say, let's talk about the cartels. We go back to the Guadalajara cartel. We talk about the Medellin cartel. I like to go back all the way in and just talk about it as a civilian, of course. But I'm intrigued by that stuff. I like to do my research.
Which one of the episodes has the most footing? Which one of them took off the most?
Everybody love when I talk the narcos talk with dealing with the cartels, and when we talk narcos, we do documentaries, recaps, and everything. And they love Snowfall for some reason. I don't know why, but that's the ones that's really that they just love is my narcos talks. Like I just recapped, we try to support 50 Cent just from him being the man he is, and I try to recap all his stuff. So I just did the Surviving El Chapo, not only because it's 50 that did it, but it's because I love the cartel talk. So I got real into that story. So we got to talking about the Surviving El Chapo, and that was pretty interesting.
What streaming platform did you watch it on?
Well, they're on iHeart, but he released it on Spotify as well.
So you primarily listen to him?
It's just this because what Fifth did is he turned it into a scripted not like a podcast where they're telling their life story. They're telling how they were raised in Chicago, got in the drug game. Then they're talking about how they got into Mexico, went on a run. On then they talking about how they decided to cooperate, of course. And what was that like? Like people think it's like, oh, I'm just deciding to tell and I'm just gonna tell and get my freedom. No, they went through a whole journey and it was really, really interesting. So I covered that, and it eventually will be a scripted series where he's gonna get it on, pick it up as a show, and that's probably when everybody will tune in. But right now it's a podcast, so I got on it early.
The Flores twins, they from Chicago. They Chicago
Yeah.
native.
They're Chicago natives, but they're Mexican. Their dad was from Mexico. So like to be fair, they didn't just jump in the game on their own. Like they kind of got in there when they was 7 doing stuff for their dad. And then as they grew older, it just came with it, but took a life of its own. So I suggest everybody go check out their story because it's dope. It's real dope. Shout out to 50 Cent.
Tell me about the reception that you get when you tweet your episodes or when you post them to social media, the attention you attract and things of that nature.
Um, I attract well, my audience is not that big. I'm not gonna front of that, but it's growing, and I have to get better with um myself. As far as I'm kind of like weird. I don't post a lot. I don't post nothing personal, but at the same time, you'd be surprised at who watched you, and I learned that. I learned that very closely. So it has definitely got some interesting responses.
Tell me about this book here. How long did it take? You say you started in 2020, right?
August 2020. So I jumped on in August 2020, and it's crazy because I didn't know my calling, and I know we'd all done been there. We'd all done been there to where we like, man, what am I supposed to be doing in my life? So that's the point I was at. And it just came to me one day when I was like, I'm gonna write a book. I be having so many stories. Like I could be listening to a song and stuff just to pop in my head like a story. I got this one scene in there where I was listening to that old school song from '95. Remember by Nonchalant, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Morning.
I was listening to that, and this thing just got to going through my head like I'm envisioning this dude running through the hood and somebody after him, but then his girl looking for him. It was just crazy what got to running through my head. But I'm like, I have all these stuff just like I have a very vivid imagination. So I'm like, let me just write about it. And I just started writing the story, and all of a sudden it just came together. I couldn't put it down. Like literally, I couldn't put it down. I'd be writing. It is characters that I literally do not like to write about that I don't like. And then I'm doing something happened to him. I'm about to cry. Like I became like a method writer, like you told me before. And it was crazy. But it's from I centered it in Detroit and it's straight fiction. None of this. I made everything up. I'm not telling nobody's story.
Right.
Um, but it's centered in Detroit and it's about everybody always talk about, hustlers from the 80s. That was the golden era. The golden era of the hustler. So we got so many stories from the 80s, but I'm like, what happened to my age era? Like the kids who was born in the 80s. Like what happened to how they was raised because half of their parents was either on drugs or either incarcerated or either happened to just escape all of that. The 80s was just a weird time. But then I was like, okay, so what year do I want to start it off? And it always been something about the year of 1994 when you talk about hip hop, when you talk about TV shows, when you talk about fashion. So I'm like 1994 was just something so special. I'm gonna start from 1994 and then work myself up. So it's kind of like the 80s drug stories that I started in the 90s. and then it's gonna work its way up, and it's a trilogy. So eventually, time will catch up. But I
Right.
wanted backstory, and it's the Tell of the Park Hill Crew about a crew in Detroit, but it centers a character named Shakim, who starts off as just a normal child with a normal family, and then something tragic happens, and it just takes a turn, takes a life of its own.
How many chapters?
In this one, I think I got 13 because we had to break it up. We had to break it up bad. Like now, I'm gonna tell you the story about that too. But it's 13 chapters in here. Yes.
13.
Hmm.
You said you plan to, there's sequels to follow, right?
Yes. It's gonna be Tell of the Park Hill Crew 2, Volume 2. And the trilogy will be called Park Hill Records because I'm gonna work it into the music game because music and hip hop and dope, it all kind of flow together sometimes. So eventually it'll work its way up into the music game, but then that'll be the end of it. And then I actually got my peoples, shout out to them. And I actually did my first interview a couple months ago. So I have been doing reviews, but I actually just did my first interview with Savage Life. They up and coming rappers. They just did a song with Sada Baby in Detroit, so they doing their thing. So shout out to them. So they came. They was a guest on my platform. I interviewed them, and they'll actually be doing some songs off based off my characters. So I'll have musics to go along with the book. So like I'm telling them like everything Shakim, that's my main character, what he going through, everything what Damien going through, and they gonna be making songs just about the characters to go with the book and the podcast.
You want some Tyler Perry shit? I see you putting it all together. The fact that you could write stories from scratch, that's an extreme skill. That's an extreme skill. Um, I've been contracted as a ghostwriter in my past, and the material that I sold the lady, it was all shit from like my life and experiences and shit like
Mhm,
that. It was easy for me to write it. All I had to do was just change the names of characters and shit like that. But
mhm,
to come from nothing and just let that shit blow, man, you got a very dynamic mind for real. Like, woo wee. Yeah. So getting back to the Flores twins, I got a question.
mhm,
Did they have some type of affiliation with DMX or something like that?
mhm, mhm.
Explain. Please explain.
Well, it was more into okay, so I don't want to misspeak or anything, but one of the florist wives, she was married to Cato, who was like the king of the Latin kings, and I know that he had dealings with X. But they also had dealings with 50 as well, with a chain getting stolen. I don't want to mess up the story, especially on your platform, but it has something to do with a chain getting stolen, and one of the Flores brothers got it back. So they had a couple of dealings um with the couple rappers, but they didn't go all in detail about that. But they
Right.
do touch on it, but they didn't go all into detail about the rappers. But yes, they did talk about that because they was in Chicago and they definitely had stuff on lock. But
And
I
which
just want to misquote anything on a platform.
right. And what was they affiliation with El Chapo? They told on him.
They yeah, they cooperated.
That's they famous for basically.
Mhm, mhm.
So where they at currently? They still incarcerated.
No, they're free. Nobody knows where they're at.
You said they free. Nobody knows where they at.
Yeah, but shout out to them. Yeah, no disrespect. Just it's an interesting story. It'll definitely, like I say, if you go check it out on their podcast, they go into detail for sure. And they definitely go into detail about a lot. They explain why they decided to tell. It's interesting.
We know why they decided to tell
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
them all them goddamn grams them niggas had.
Yeah. I definitely try to keep everything I try to keep everything with integrity, you know what I'm saying? Especially with me being a civilian, I don't try to down talk them or nothing. Like if they decided to tell, that's on them. You know, I ain't in that life, but I do my research and I, like to get off deep into it. But yeah, but they not the only ones. They definitely not the only ones. But that they are the downfall for El Chapo because they were the only ones who got him on recording. You know, they actually got his voice on recordings. They actually testified, so that was a big deal.
Damn, damn, damn. So that's been one of your more high profile episodes. What episode is that?
Ooh. So I just did one. That was episode 280 because I recorded 281 episodes. So that was 280, but I do them like as they come out. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I can't remember which each episode is. But if you go follow me on Spotify, you follow my playlist, you'll just be able to see everything I put out there. So yeah. Everything is titled. Like whatever I recap, I put that specific title. I do one topic at a time. So it's easy to find.
What what resources do you rely on in regards to you doing your researches? You're doing your research.
Oh my God, you would be surprised. I buy books all the time. I buy books. When I say I buy books, I buy books. I buy I just do a lot of YouTube research, a lot of online research as well. Before we had YouTube, I'm not lying. I used to go print stuff off because I was just so interested, in just the backstories. So I remember before I even started doing all this, I had so much stuff about the paid in full story just printed off because I'm just weird. I just get off into that stuff, urban topics. So and that's how I get my research just online. And then sometimes you can piece together stuff. If you watching one person talk about this and then you watch another interview, one of them lying, but the truth is somewhere in there. You just got to kind of put it together. But the Flores twins story was easy to cover because they're telling their own story, you know.
Right. Right. Okay. Who did you go about? How did you go about publishing the book? Did you went to
Um,
ADP?
Yes, but no, it's crazy because when I got done, I'm like, dang, you know what I'm saying? What the hell am I supposed to do now? I'm done, but how am I supposed to do this? So I met with a few people down because I'm in Atlanta now. So it's kind of a little easier to, network with different people. So I networked with the one publishing company that was booklogic.com. And I just didn't feel like they probably would understand the story. Like from what they had published already, just from talking to him, I'm like, I don't know. So then I went and met with this other guy, and he was really dope. He helped me when I with my book cover. We did it together. But then I got offered another deal with Dorrance Publishing. When I copywritten everything, they reached out to me and they offered me a deal. And then I'm like, I don't know. I'm giving away a lot for free on the first volume one because I'm reading off the podcast for free. So I'm like, I'm gonna do the self publishing with KDP first, and then with volume two, if everything on my way, I can go with somebody else and do
Right.
better.
Shout
Cause
out.
yeah.
Shout out to KDP. They've been make
Shout out to KDP.
they made it easy. They made it easy. You know what I'm saying? Tell them where your book is available at. So of course it's on. If you did one with KDP, it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. It's definitely on Amazon. If you in the Atlanta area, I have it. I can give it to you. But if you anywhere else is on Amazon, you type in the Tale of the Park Hill Crew. And then if you don't like to read, if you just don't want to, I get it. I'm reading it every Friday starting in January. We're gonna have music to go with it. It is gonna be on Spotify under my Alicia Shanice podcast. But it's a dope story if you like it's hip hop, it's murder. One thing I said I wasn't gonna do because I think it's too much on TV now. I didn't over sexualize it.
Right.
So it's not very over sexualized at all, but it's very urban. It's very urban. It's hood, it's street, it's hip hop, it's killing, but it's consequences. It's definitely consequences. I didn't glorify the game because I was told as a writer, if you're gonna love your characters, you gotta make consequences come with your character. So it's definitely consequences. They ain't just making money and just making it out for free. It's consequences that come with everything that they doing.
Did you cover the YSL case?
No, I didn't cover that one. Mm-mm.
Why? Why?
Just I don't know. I just wasn't interested in covering it. I've been hearing what's going on closely, but that wasn't my thing. But yeah, I ain't cover it.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate you stopping through and giving us
Thank
an update on
you.
everything that you're doing. I want how long were you I remember how long were you subscribed to the channel? How long you been with Gully TV? Like
Oh my God. No, no, I'm like an
5
original. It was just probably me I go back. I was in the first dribble, when the morning dribble. No, I go back from when you covered Prodigy funeral. I go back from I remember when that little beef was going on with Kevin Childs and AZ, and you had inserted in that. I was in the chat then. It was probably me and Ken Intelligent. Like that's how far I
Right,
go back.
right.
I was the first female probably just in the chat every
Definitely.
Monday, every morning dribble 9 a.m. Yeah, definitely an OG. I just been busy lately, but I'm definitely an OG dribbler. I got
That's
my
what
grandma. My grandma be like, "I'm going to get my dribble right this morning at the gym." I be like, "All right, grandma."
no doubt. Go get your dribble right. Tell her, tell them where they can find tell them the name of the podcast and where they can find it at on all the streaming platforms.
Okay, so the name of the podcast, I'm on Spotify. If you go on Spotify, please follow me, follow my playlist. I got fire ass playlist. I got a straight hip hop head. If y'all hear the music I was listening to when I wrote my book, y'all will understand why I'm, listening to follow Gully all the time. Like I got a lot of the Fern on there, Beanie Siegel. I mean, it's the dope fire playlist. But I made all my playlists public. You can follow my podcast on Spotify, Alicia Shanice Reviews. Please purchase the book, even if you just want to sample. Once you get into it, you will be like, okay, I want some more. Because I put my heart and soul in. I fell in love with my characters. I tried to make as realistic as possible. So yeah, tap in. Tale of the
Uh,
Park Hill.
keep up the good work. Hold it up. Hold mine up too.
Yes,
Make
that's
sure
what I'm
y'all
talking
go
about.
cop. Go
Yes.
cop. You know what I'm
I put my
saying?
book right next to yours too. I was like, and then when they asked on KDP, they said, name some books you love, and I typed yours in too. So y'all put yours on there. So yeah, we gotta, support each other.
That's what's up. Alicia, I appreciate your time. This is I hope there's many interviews to follow. You and your
Absolutely.
career and shit, man. Keep up the good work. And especially keep using that pen because you nice. You
Thank
nice.
you.
If you able to, create a story from scratch, shit, man, you probably got a history in Hollywood. You know what I mean? A history,
I'm hoping so.
a future in Hollywood, man, writing scripts or something like that. So,
Behind the scenes, I told you I had an interesting conversation with somebody, and I said my plan is to one day, if it's in his will, I want my book to go to 50. I don't want anybody touching it because I want it handled correctly. I wouldn't want to just trade it off for money where they trade my story and have my characters doing something I don't approve of. So I'm very overprotective over this book because these characters mean a lot to me. But we gonna see what it do. I'm just praying for the best.
that's what's up. Shout out to Flint, man. There's a lot of Flint people on this
Oh yeah, oh
motherfucker.
yeah. Everyone knows
Dating
I grew up on
family,
the north side of Flint.
top authority, Harlem Shakur, and now you again. Everybody, this is Alicia. She's one of my longtime followers on YouTube, and I watched her career go from a thought and an idea to her actually publishing a book and putting out you was in the podcast game before me. You came out before me. So
Yeah, but you popping more. You popping more.
keep up the good work. You know what I'm
Thank
saying?
you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a
All
good
right.
night.
You
Peace.
too. Bye bye.